All right, for function notation, the important thing to remember is that f of x equals y. Okay, remember they mean the same exact thing. F is just kind of naming our function f, okay, given the value of x. X's are independent. Sometimes you could see it named function g, where g of x equals. That's also y, okay? Or h of x, whatever it is of x, it always means y, okay? So another important thing to remember is that with a coordinate point, you always have an x value and a y value, okay? So for this section, you're gonna be given one of the two, and you're gonna have to find the other. So if I give you x, you're trying to find the y that goes with that x. If I give you y, you're trying to find the x that goes with it. Okay, so let's look at this example below. Given the equation, f of x equals 4x plus 6, find the value of f of x when x equals 3. Okay, so what this means, you've been given your x value. So off to the side, I'm just gonna put 3 in for where my x would be, comma, and then a blank space for where my y will be once we find it, right? Because it says find the value of f of x. Well, f of x we know is the same thing as y. So we're trying to find that missing y value, okay? So there are a couple different ways we can do this. One way, we can say, since you're given your x is equal to 3, wherever I have an x, I can put a 3. So what this means is the function of 3. So when I put a 3 in for my x, you see from f of x to f of 3, all that changed is your x was replaced with the 3, right? Because we know x is equal to 3. Equals 4 times, instead of x, I'm putting 3 plus 6. And then we can solve, because this whole thing is just y, right? This is just saying find y when my x is 3, okay? So we'll say y equals, we know 4 times 3 is 12, bring down my plus 6, and 12 plus 6 is 18. So when my x is 3, when I plug in 3 for my x's, I end up with my y as 18. That's your answer. That is what f of x or y equals when x equals 3, okay? And I'll show you another way you can do it if you were to use desmos.com. Remember that's desmos.com, and you can use the graphing calculator. Okay, you can see that I've already graphed the function f of x equals 4x plus 6. Here's our line for it. What it means when x equals 3 and we want to find the y value, you look at your x-axis and see where x is 3. Okay, let me zoom in a little. And you would want to see where I have a point at 3. Okay, go up a little ways. Okay. I still haven't gotten quite to, hasn't passed through 3 yet. It passes right here. Okay. So when x is 3, I have the point, look at what the y value is when I click it. When x is 3 on that function, y is 18, okay? Another thing you can do, kind of a shortcut, is you can, after you've typed in the function already, you can go down below and type in, I want to know when x is 3. It's going to put a line through x equals 3. And you can see where those two lines intersect, okay? And they intersect at 3:18. All right, example 2, we're gonna look at the exact same equation that we did above, but this time we're gonna figure out what is x when f of x, or y, equals 38. It's always important to figure out whether you're given your x or your y and which one you're trying to find. So in this case, we don't know our x value, but we know our y is 38. We're trying to figure out the x, okay? So it tells me f of x, or y, is equal to 38 in this equation. So you're replacing your f of x with what it's equal to, which is 38. So we're saying 38 equals, because I replaced f of x with 38, so 38 equals 4x plus 6. I don't know my x yet, okay? That's what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out what is x, okay? So all you did was replace the y part of your function with what it was equal to, which is 38. So now we're solving, now all we're doing is to solve for x, get x by itself. So to get x by itself, you need to separate your left and right side, draw your line. We would start by subtracting a 6 from both sides to cancel out that plus 6, okay? So we get 32 equals 4x. 4 times x, the opposite of multiplying by 4 would be to divide by 4. And whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side. 4 divided by 4 is 1, leaving me 1x equals 32 divided by 4 is 8. So my x is 8. That is your answer. When y is 38, my x value is 8. So now I'm looking at when y equals 38, I want to figure out my x value. Okay, so here's my function. Here's the line of what I'm trying to find. I want to look where the two intersect. You can see they intersect right here, and that is at 838. Okay. All right, what is the value of g of 5 in the equation g of x equals negative 2x plus 3? What this means is, what is the value of g of 5? So what is, you've got to figure out first what 5 is, and then we'll go from there. So first thing, if I put g of x above it, you can see all that changed is that x was replaced with 5. Okay, so what that tells us is that x equals 5. So if we know our x, that means it's asking us to find the y value. So what this means is, what is the value of y when x is 5? That's what g of 5 means. It means when x is 5, what is y? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use our equation. Rewrite it over here. G of x equals negative 2x plus 3, but we're going to plug in 5 for our x. So g of 5 equals negative 2 times 5 plus 3. Okay, negative 2 times 5 is a negative 10, plus 3 gives us a negative 7. So my y value, my g of 5 or my y, is equal to negative 7. All right, for example 4, we want to look at a few different A, B, C, and D, a few different ways you could ask different questions for the same equation, okay? So we just have a basic f of x equals 3x minus 4. A says find f of negative 2. Okay, we just went over one like this. This means if we look at f of x underneath, that my x was replaced with negative 2, meaning x equals negative 2. So if x is negative 2, what's our y value? Right? So all we're going to do is we're going to take that equation and we're going to plug in negative 2 for our x's. So we have f of negative 2 equals 3 times negative 2 minus 4. All I did was replace our x's with negative 2's. So 3 times negative 2, remember this just means y. What is y when x is negative 2? So 3 times negative 2 is a negative 6 minus 4. Gives me y equals a negative 10. Okay, now this one says find x when f of x equals 11. F of x is equal to y, remember? So y equals 11. Meaning I have the point blank, whatever my x is, comma 11. And I've got to figure out my x value when x is 11. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our equation, and I'm going to replace f of x with what it's equal to, which is 11. So I'm going to have 11 equals 3x minus 4. And we're going to solve for x. So I'd add 4 to both sides. I get 15 equals 3x. Divide both sides by 3. And we get x equals 15 divided by 3 is 5. Okay. Next one, when x equals 0, what is the value of f of x? Once again, what is the value of f of x? What is my y? Okay, so it's kind of like the first one. It gives us the x value is 0. What is our y value? So we're going to take our equation and we're going to plug zeros in for x. Okay, so f of 0, or y, when x is 0, equals 3 times 0 minus 4. Well, 3 times 0 is just 0, so you get our y value is negative 4. Okay, and last but not least, okay, what is the value of f of 4 minus f of 0? You have two of these, f of 4 and f of 0. You have to do both, okay, so you're going to have two different things. What that means is for f of 4, this tells us x is 4. F of 0 tells me x equals 0. We want to figure out the y value when x is 4 minus the y value when x is 0. So we're going to do f of 4 equals, and we're going to plug in 4 to our equation. So 3 times 4 minus 4. I'm going to put all this in parentheses, minus, because this is my f of 4, minus, we want to subtract f of 0, right? That's what this problem says. So this is what f of 4 would be, minus whatever we get for f of 0. So I'll put that in parentheses. F of 0 equals 3 times 0 minus 4. So we're going to solve this. We get the 3 times 4 is 12. 12 minus 4 gives us 8. Minus 3 times 0 is 0. A negative 4. What happens when you have minus and negative? When you have a double negative right next to each other, minus and negative, they make each other positive. So we get 12. All right, example 5. We're doing the same kind of thing, but now we're just looking at it on a graph, okay? So when x equals 5, then f of x equals blank, all right? Didn't give us an equation here. We don't have anything to plug 5 into. So what we're just going to do is look at our graph. You're given x. I want to know the y that corresponds with x, okay? So if you want to list your coordinate point, x is 5. What's the y value? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to go out to 5 on your x-axis. And then you're going to find at 5 on my x-axis, where do I have a point on the function? Well, at 5 on your x, you have a point down here. And we all know what is that value on the y-axis. On the y-axis, this is negative 5. Meaning this point is 5, negative 5. This is the point where x is 5, and when x is 5, we get that y is negative 5. Okay, so find f of 8 now. That's telling me x is 8. What's the y value when x is 8? Okay, so we're going to go out here. We're going to look at where x is 8. Where x is 8, we have a point right here. When x is 8, our y value is at 4. X is 8 when the y is 4. Okay? And then last but not least, C, what is the value of x when f of x equals negative 3? Okay, so this is your y. Y equals negative 3. So we have, this is our coordinate point so far. I want to figure out the x. So now I'm going to look at my y-axis and figure out on my y-axis when y is at -3, where do I have a point? If you notice, you actually have 3 points, okay? When I went down to -3 and I drew my line across, it touched my graph here, here, and here, okay? So when y equals -3, x actually equals 3 different numbers, okay? You have the point -4 on our x with -3 on our y. You have the point of +4 on x with -3 on the y. And you have the point +6, -3. So x could be any of those numbers. X equals -4, x equals +4, and x also equals 6. Oh, and you can't see what I wrote down here. X equals -4, 4, or 6. All right, example 6. Sometimes you'll see ones with fractions, so we want to go over one like that, just so you don't panic when you see fractions. They are not harder, okay? So we have A, g of x equals 2/5, find x, right? So g of x is our y. We want to find the x. So we have this so far of our coordinate point. Oh, and you can't see that. So we want to find the x value, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna plug in 2/5 for g of x, because g of x or y is equal to 2/5. So g of x or y is where we're gonna put in 2/5. So I'm gonna have 2/5 equals, I'm gonna have room there. So I'm actually gonna do it up here where I have some free space. 2/5 equals 4x minus 2 divided by 5. All right, so we're trying to get x by itself. So let's go ahead and cancel out this divided by 5 part, because that's the part that makes this a fraction, right? So I'm gonna multiply both sides by 5. Multiplying by 5 and dividing by 5, they're inverse operations. They cancel each other out. 5 divided by 5 is just 1. Same over here, 5 divided by 5, multiplying by 5, dividing by 5, they cancel out. So we get 2 equals 4x minus 2. From there, to get x by itself, we add 2 to both sides. We get 4 equals a 4x. Divide both sides by 4, and you get x equals 1. Okay, next one, we have g of x equals blank if f of x equals 7/4. So it gave us the x value. We know x equals 7/4. I don't know why I rewrote it. So we have 7/4. We want to find that missing y value, right? So what we're going to do is take our equation and we're going to plug in 7/4 for our x value. Okay, so we'll have g of 7/4, because that's my x value. G of x, x is 7/4, equals 4 times 7/4 minus 2, all divided by 5. Okay, well, 4 multiplying by 4 and dividing by 4, those would cancel out. This is just y, right? Y when x is 7/4, so y equals 7 minus 2 divided by 5. And 7 minus 2 is 5, so we get 5 divided by 5. And 5 divided by 5 is 1. So when x is 7/4, y is 1. And last but not least, g of 3 equals blank. G of 3 means that x equals 3, okay? So x is 3, what's my y value? There we go. All right, so I'm gonna plug in 3 for x. So we have 4 times 3 minus 2 divided by 5. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 minus 2 divided by 5. So we get 10 divided by 5. 12 minus 2 is 10. And 10 divided by 5 is 2. That's our y value. So we get y equals 2. I'm so sorry, guys. You couldn't even see what I did there at the bottom. All right, so let's run through that again over here. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And over here, 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay? Sorry you couldn't see it. Hopefully you could hear me and kind of keep up. Okay? And last example, I want to go over one more like this. Find f of negative 2 plus f of 5. Forgot to write the given. Okay? Given the equation, we'll put it on here. F of x equals, we'll do 6x plus 1. Okay? All right, so we'll have f of negative 2, meaning I'm plugging in a negative 2 for my x, because this means x equals negative 2. This means x equals 5. So when x is negative 2, I would have 6 minus 2 plus 1 plus, I'm adding these together, and then when x is 5, okay, here's when f is negative 2. When f is 5, I'm going to have 6, and then in parentheses, I'm putting 5 plus 1. So I'm putting this whole side in parentheses, and I put this whole side in parentheses, because I want to simplify just this part, and then I want to add them together. So we have 6 times the negative 2, which gives me negative 12 plus 1, plus 6 times 5 is 30 plus 1. Okay? Negative 12 plus 1 gives me a negative 11, and 30 plus 1 is 31. Negative 11 plus 31 gives me a positive 20.